Shabbat Shalom, and this is 10 minutes of Torah. Not a person named Shechem, and not a city named Shechem, but 10 minutes of Torah. How strange it is, actually, that a city and a person share a name, but that happens in this week's Torah portion. This week's parasha is Vayishlach, and things have been happening very fast. Last week, you had Jacob coming to Haran, and at the beginning of the parsha, and by the end of the parsha, he's leaving with all of his, not just his wives, but now grown, in some cases, children. Not all. One will be born actually this week. But in the meantime, this week also a tremendous amount goes on in terms of moving the narrative forward. So it begins with Jacob sending his wives and children and servants, everyone on ahead to cross back into the land of Israel because somehow he has received word that Esau, his brother, who last wanted to kill him when he last saw him, is waiting for him on the other side of the border, and yet it's time for Jacob to go back to the land of Israel. So he sends everybody ahead of him, and then Jacob encounters this divine being. Remember that as he left the land of Israel, he had a vision of God, a dream, with the ladder and the angels and the messengers going up and down. Well, he now has a different kind of experience where he encounters a divine being once again and wrestles with the divine being. And as dawn is breaking, no one seems to be taking control, and so the divine being has to go because for some reason it can't be there during daylight. So Jacob says, "I won't let you go unless you bless me," and the blessing is a change of name from Jacob to Israel, as the messenger, as the angel says, "No longer you shall be known as Jacob, but as Israel, for you have striven with beings divine and human and have prevailed." And that is a play on the Yisrael, the striving. So Jacob now crosses over into the land of Israel and does indeed encounter his brother Esau. But instead of animosity and anger, the two embrace, they kiss, they weep on each other's shoulders, and they are able to put things in the past. What a great lesson that is. I know so many people have conflicts with people they love. Once in a while, we can see the model of Jacob and Esau where they see each other and it melts away. And that's what happens here. Well, Jacob is now in the land of Israel, and he goes to the city of Shechem. I mentioned Shechem already at the beginning. Today, by the way, in modern day Israel, Shechem is Nablus. That is the Arabic name, I believe, for the city. So while they are there, while they are settled there, Dinah, the only daughter, at least the only daughter that is mentioned in the text, Dinah is taken by force by the king's son, whose name is Shechem. Well, he wants to marry Dinah, and his father suggests that let's make, kind of a deal between both of our peoples. They should marry each other. We'll give our daughters to you, and you give your sons to us, or vice versa. And so Jacob's sons, Shimon and Levi, say, well, yes, we can do this, but our people are circumcised. So you have to circumcise your people in order to do this, and then we can proceed from there. Well, while they are recovering, Shimon and Levi Actually, they're not the ones who said they have to circumcise. That was just the general understanding from Jacob. Shimon and Levi go and kill all the males. That's a very interesting and questionable moral situation, which we'll save for another day. But not just 10 Minutes of Torah says it's a moral question, but even Jacob himself questions his sons and says, what kind of a name will there be for us in this territory? And they retort back, should we let our sister be held as a whore? Interesting, but problematic still. And then the Torah portion continues with, once again, a confirmation of Jacob's name change and the blessing, and finally the birth of Jacob's last son, Benjamin, and in childbirth, his mother Rachel dies. There is not a bit of irony there that earlier Rachel, when she was barren, had said, "Give me children, lest I die." Anyway, so that is this week's Torah portion, ending with a genealogy of Esau. And there is so much going on here. But what I want to center on is this seeing of something by Jacob twice. Jacob sees things twice. So when Jacob wrestles, when Jacob struggles with this messenger of God, and he asks for a blessing, and he changes Jacob's name, Jacob calls the place Peniel. Why? Well, the text tells us directly. Jacob says, I have seen God face to face. That is what the Hebrew Pene, and El, the face of God. I have seen a divine being face to face. And then he says, and yet my life has been preserved, because we have a tradition in Judaism that we cannot actually usually see God's presence face to face, if you will, and live. That's later on with Moses. But in this case, Jacob sees God face to face and lives. Now, when Jacob and Esau reconcile, what does Jacob say to Esau? Very, very interesting. This is in chapter 33, verse 10, not too far away from the wrestling with the angel. So in verse 10, Jacob says to Esau, to see your face is like seeing the face of God, and you have received me favorably. So interesting, right? Seeing your face is like seeing the face of God. This comes from Jacob, who has just said, I have seen the face of God and lived. So what is the connection that the text wants us to make between Jacob seeing the face of God, if you will, with this messenger he struggles with, and Jacob saying to Esau, seeing your face is like seeing the face of God? So I think that these two statements refer back to, or refer to each other, if you will. So when Jacob sees Esau, he now understands something that he didn't understand when they were growing up. Jacob, the one who took advantage of Esau and bought the birthright for a bowl of lentil soup, and Jacob, who tricked their father into giving them the blessing, Jacob now says, I have learned something, and that is you are a human being, Esau, and in you is the face of God. Back in beginning of Breshit, the beginning of the Bible, the beginning of the book of Genesis, it tells us that we are created in God's image. That is what Jacob has finally learned. Seeing the image of God in a messenger of God, in an angel, and seeing Esau, he now understands that in each and every human being is an image of God. And that is perhaps why they are able to reconcile. Well, this has been 10 Minutes of Torah. Not the city of Shechem and not a person named Shechem, but 10 Minutes of Torah. Shabbat Shalom.